Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Northern Kentucky Spotlight Podcast presented by CVG. I'm your host, Sarah Brookbank. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend and your work week is off to a great start. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Steve Abbott, Executive Director of Cincinnati Cancer Advisors, who shares how their free services help Greater Cincinnati cancer patients. On NKY at Work, we're joined by Correy Eimer, who is the Associate Director of Workforce Development of the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. And he shares with Nancy Spivey about how they are helping businesses train and retain employees. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, CVG, our title sponsor, C-Crew Consulting, our digital sponsor, and our episode sponsor, Haran. We have a few exciting events and happenings in the Northern Kentucky Chamber this month. We have another installment of our DEI Summit series happening on Friday, April 21st. Overcoming the Frozen Middle, where decisions get traction, will feature a panel of experts who will share insights and tactics that businesses can use to thaw the frozen layer of middle management and keep DEI progress flowing at your workplace. You can register for that now at nkychamber.com/events. Also happening this week, applications for NKYP's Next Generation Leader Awards close. The NGLAs recognize young professionals under 40 for significant accomplishments within their chosen professional field, as well as their commitment and contribution to the community. You can submit an application before Friday, April 14th at nkychamber.com/NGLA app. Now, let's hear from our sponsors, meet our members of the week, and Nancy and I will be back with your guests.
CVG Airport is the lowest fare airport in the tri-state region with 54 nonstop flights and direct international service to 7 destinations, including Paris, France, and now home to both DHL's and Amazon's global cargo hubs. The airport is furthering its position as leader in aviation and is deeply committed to being an economic driver for the community. You can learn more and start your next adventure at cvgairport.com.
Ranking on Google Search and Maps is easy to understand, but hard to do. It requires constant effort and attention, uploading new photos, responding to Google reviews, writing weekly posts, and checking suggested updates. Google listing optimization takes experience and time, and there are no shortcuts. C-Crew gives your Google My Business account the steady, consistent attention it needs to be effective, optimizing, updating, and expanding critical content every single week. From local retail stores to large regional networks, C-Crew generates content, establishes benchmarks, and creates dramatic, measurable increases in engagement. So what can C-Crew do for your business? More calls, more clicks, more clients.
Congratulations to our members of the week. You can learn more about these businesses by following the Northern Kentucky Chamber on social media, where we will highlight one of these businesses each day. Now, let's meet our members of the week. Hands to Minds Early Learning Center is an early learning facility that provides high-quality early learning experiences through hands-on and engaging activities. Hilton Garden Inn, Florence, Cincinnati Airport South is one of Northern Kentucky's newest hotels, offering state-of-the-art amenities for all guests. Mitchell Insurance offers a wide range of options for auto, home, business, and life insurance, with the goal to provide a high level of personal service. 927 Reserve is a local favorite, showcasing over 75 hand-selected bourbons located in Newport's historic business district. Primary Pediatrics is a primary care practice offering quality and compassionate health care to infants, children, and adolescents. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast today. We are joined by Steve Abbott, the Executive Director of Cincinnati Cancer Advisors. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yes, so tell me about Cincinnati Cancer Advisors.
Yeah, so I'm happy to say I first came to Cincinnati Cancer Advisors as a patient. So I'm coming on 10-year prostate cancer survivor. And
Congratulations.
So, thank you. I appreciate that. So in June 2020, we started to see some things going on with my case, working with my radiation oncologist, and we couldn't quite figure out why my numbers were doing what they were doing because we couldn't really see anything on the imaging that explained it. And so we felt like we needed to bring in some additional expertise. So Dr. Bill Barrett, who is my radiation oncologist, who's actually the founder of Cincinnati Cancer Advisors, asked me to go out to Cincinnati Cancer Advisors for a second opinion, basically, or to have them look at it. So what I did was I went out and really got to experience firsthand what we do, which is, I say we because I was lucky enough to join later, but what we do, which is to spend about 2 to 2.5 hours with patients going over their entire medical history, looking at all their images, looking at their previous reports, and try to lend our own expertise, working kind of with the doctor, not against the doctor. They're the treating oncologist, working with them, and just trying to provide the best possible outcome, the best possible treatment plan, which is what we did. And I ended up going up to Michigan for an imaging technique that was in clinical trial at the time. We were able to come back. I was able to do spot radiation and eliminate those spots of cancer. So it's kind of one of the great stories that can happen when you've got time to spend with a patient.
Yeah, that is really incredible. One of the things that you do, and you touched on this, is offering second opinions for those who are dealing with a cancer diagnosis. What's different about going to Cincinnati Cancer Advisors versus more of a traditional hospital second opinion? Yeah,
it's a great question. And I think I would say the key differentiator is what I already kind of touched on, which is the amount of time. Mm-hmm. And so what we're able to do, and I read something recently, I think the number had been in the mid-20s, but with all the pressures that are on the healthcare system now, length of consultations now about 17 to 20 minutes. And so if you think about getting a cancer diagnosis and trying to assimilate what you're being told, you just feel like you got just dropped on your head. And then you're trying to even understand the words that are being spoken to you because it's an entirely different language. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to have extra time to really understand that. And that's one of the things we really do is we spend a lot of time. We give people a lot of time, give them time to ask questions. Their family members, they can bring anybody they want. And as I mentioned before, once they leave, it's not over. I mean, what we do is our oncologists call their treating oncologist and they'll say, hey, I just saw Steve. These are my initial impressions. However, I happen to know a guy that is one of the top specialists in the country on his particular type of cancer. I'd be happy to call them, get their feedback. So then it brings other expertise into the loop. And none of this costs anything, which is the amazing thing. But then the patient can really benefit from that because at that point it becomes a team approach. The treating oncologist, we're complementary. I often say we're complementary with an E, and we're complementary with an I because we're free of charge. But it's an entire team approach to try to improve the outcome for that patient instead of something that can feel a little adversarial, like I'm going to go see somebody else, and not all doctors take that the wrong way. In fact, a lot of them don't. But it can be a little tricky. It's awkward for the patient. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for the patient. This approach is, at least in our best scenario, everybody's working together for the benefit of that patient, which is great. Yeah, so that's very different, like you said, than working with like another hospital. Yeah. You're bringing a team in. You're having a team effort. Exactly. And, and the other thing is, too, and we insist on it being this way because we feel like it gives the best result, we are independent of any hospital systems. We're not affiliated with anybody other than ourselves and the Cincinnati Cancer Foundation, which funds our operations. But because we are independent and we can be objective, we don't treat patients. There's no incentive for us to try to bring a patient into our office. We don't treat them. We don't get revenue from that. So our only real incentive is to work with their treating oncologist to try to improve their outcome. Yeah, that seems very unique. And one of the things I also want to touch on, and you mentioned this, I think twice now, you guys offer these services for free. Mm-hmm. How do you guys do that? What makes that possible? It adds one more interesting element to my job, which is fundraising. Mm-hmm. And so we've been very, very fortunate so far. We've been able to be self-funding. We do have some reserves that can let us go for a while longer, and which I'm really, really grateful for. We have some really nice local foundations that have helped us, some companies as well. We get what I call grateful patient donations. We don't charge them, but sometimes people are so pleased with what they got that they actually do send us something. Sometimes that can be a meaningful amount of money. And our fundraising events. We do about ever increasing amount of those, like 5 or 6 now, I think. But that's a nice opportunity to raise some money, but also raise awareness for what we do. So, we'll be back out. We're working now on kind of a fundraising plan that I think we'll probably launch sometime in the summer or in the fall, where we can kind of take some of these, this momentum we've got behind us and some of these wins and go out and tell our story and hopefully engage some donors that are interested in funding what we do. Yeah, that is really great. And one of the things I also wanted to touch on, you guys have a very cool goal for 2023. What is that goal? Tell our listeners about that. So we're calling it 500 for 500. And so when we started, we opened in 2020. just in time for COVID. And amazingly, somehow enough, we saw 229 patients that year, which I was stunned by. And almost all of those were face-to-face. I was really surprised. Not very many people wanted to do Zoom. And even in the middle of the height of COVID. And I think that's because cancer is such a profound disease. I think it's important for people to sit across the table from somebody, see into their eyes and, be close. And it's just, it's not like having a cold, it's a totally different thing. But then we saw 305 patients next year. We saw 376 patients in 2022. And our goal this year is to see 500 patients. And so we tied that into a little kind of fun fundraising campaign. Hopefully we can get 500 people to donate $500 for 500 patients. But so we launched that, and that's doing pretty well so far. But on the one hand, it sounds like a numbers thing. Oh, you're just trying to get bigger numbers. Well, two things. One, there's a couple of things. One, 500 would represent a continued pattern of about 30 to 35% growth that we've had since we opened. 500 would represent, believe it or not, about a third of the cancer patients locally that are seeking second opinions. There'll be about 11,000 Greater Cincinnatians diagnosed with cancer this year. About 15% of those will seek a second opinion, which is somewhere between 15 and 1,700. And if we see 500 of those, that's a third of those patients, which would be remarkable for a business that's only 3 years old.
Right.
So last but not least, it's a number. It might seem arbitrary, but we can build the best practice that imaginable, but that's only as good as how many people know about us and how many people we can help. So it's not just a number, it represents how many more people we can help. And that's what we're really in it to do.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially you said this, that cancer is such a profound diagnosis for so many people, and it impacts a very large portion of our population.
It does.
As this newer organization, as you guys are reaching out to more patients, what are some things that you're learning, and what are the lessons that you've learned over the course of the past 3 years?
I would say first and foremost, and it reflects in the surveys that we send to people. We do send a survey out after the fact, and I will be honest with you, I hate surveys. I delete most of them, but thankfully, and this is incredible to me, about 70% of the people we send a survey out to, written surveys, respond. Which is a remarkably high number. Of those 70%, 95 to 97% give us 5-star ratings on every criteria. And what we see is kind of what I talked about, what's reflected in the comments. People sometimes write on the page, on the back of the page, attach a separate page, and they go on. And it's because it's a totally unique kind of medical visit for them. They're not accustomed to having someone sit as long as they want you to sit, because we just don't have billing pressures. We don't have to get people in and out. We've got an entirely different model, and you can see how much people appreciate it because it's at a time where they don't want to feel rushed. I mean, like I said before, you see words. I mean, where else do you see words like, osteosarcoma or they're words they're just not part of your lexicon, and so you have to know about it. And then if you're getting rushed through it, it's like you don't even know what you're making a decision based on. So you need someone that slows things down, gives you time to ask your questions. If you leave, you're on your drive home and you remember something else, you can call us and ask us again. And you're never really done. I mean, you can always come back. You can always, ask for another appointment to come back in and clarify your questions. We see people all the time that have done that. So it's a really, really unique situation. And what we've learned is that how important that time is to people. Right.
That makes a lot of sense. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are probably dealing with their own struggles in a cancer diagnosis. So for people who are listening to the podcast, they're being introduced to you for the first time, how can they get in touch with you all?
Oh, great question. Thank you. So we have a website. It's CincinnatiCancerAdvisors.org. It's long, but easy. And then you can also call it's 513-731-CARE, C-A-R-E, or 513-731-2273. Or you can come to one of our many fundraising events where you'll also have an opportunity to pick up our brochures and things like that as well. So we'll have our Wine, Women, and Shoes fundraiser coming up. We've got our golf outing in August, and we have an oncology symposium that we host in October. That's really our only one that we target towards the oncology community. Everything else is very customer facing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Steve, before I let you go today, and I appreciate your time on the podcast, is there anything else that you think our viewers and listeners should know about Cincinnati Cancer Advisors?
So I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I'm really excited about being here today, Sarah, and we'll be at a chamber event tomorrow as well, is I'm a lifelong Northern Kentuckian, proud to say, but I've spent most of my career working across the river, and it's kind of what we're trying to do. But we're called Cincinnati Cancer Advisors. We were started by a Cincinnati family who knows a lot of Cincinnatians. Mm-hmm. And the message I'm trying to get out to people is there's this amazing resource that, depending on where you live in Northern Kentucky, might only be at most a 45-minute drive away. Mm-hmm. And you can come and access all of this great care for free. But I really want us to be known in Northern Kentucky. We almost should be called Greater Cincinnati Cancer mm-hmm. Advisors, because that's really what we are. But with the Chamber's help and some of these other opportunities, I really want Northern Kentuckians, who probably fall into that same category. 1 in 8 of us will get diagnosed with cancer. And for those people, they're surrounded by family. So 1 in 8 becomes more than 1 in 8. Even if you're not the one suffering, you're the caregiver, you're the person that's impacted by it. So 1 in 8 suddenly becomes 4 in 8, or some number like that. It affects an amazing number of people in our population, and we really want the Northern Kentuckians to come as well.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time on the podcast. We will encourage our Northern Kentuckians to cross the river and visit you guys up in Ohio. But thank you again for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Nancy Spivey, Vice President of Talent Strategies for the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. Today at our NKY at Work podcast segment, we are joined by Correy Eimer. Correy's a great friend in the workforce space. Correy, tell me a little bit about incumbent worker training. What does that mean?
Happy to. So incumbent worker training is a program offered through the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board, and it's all about helping employers offset the cost of training their own people. So incumbent worker essentially means your existing worker.
Okay.
So with the talent attraction issues, the shortage of folks in our region and in our state, in our country,
right?
It's all the more important to make sure you're keeping the people that you have, and you want to train them up and position them for advancement within your own company.
So this is a pot of money that's available through the state for any employer or certain types of employers?
Yes. So it's part of WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funds, which originate in D.C. So they're federal funds. They get funneled through the state and then apportioned out to the different workforce development areas.
Oh, okay.
And so we've carved out some of those funds to be put toward incumbent worker training, because we know there's a need there with employers.
So what type of training? Give me an idea what type of training would qualify for this type of dollar.
Sure. We're working with a couple of companies now. A couple are actually doing frontline manager training.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
speak my language.
Yes. So, there are a number of different trainings that could be provided.
Right.
But the thing I like best about the frontline manager training is it's cross-cutting. It doesn't matter what industry sector you're representing.
Right.
Everyone has managers. And the key to good retention is good quality frontline managers.
Yes. Survey after survey that we hear is like one of the prime reasons why people leave is bad management, poor management. So you're right on target. So help me understand, if I am an employer and I'm already taking advantage of Bluegrass State Skills or Kentucky Trains or other training programs out there, do I qualify for both?
Unfortunately, you do not.
Okay.
For the same training, I should say.
Okay.
So if you're taking advantage of KCTCS trains or the Bluegrass State Skills, you wouldn't be able to additionally use our incumbent worker training funds for the same training.
Okay. But if I'm using, let's say, Bluegrass State Skills for a different program or different training, I can still qualify for this for other people and other training, right?
Yes, you could.
Kind of how that
It's kind of like double dipping if you were to use it for the same training, but you can use them for different trainings.
Okay. And I think you said this already, but you said you've carved out a portion of money. So once that money's gone, I guess it's gone. Do you have a time frame for people to apply? How do they apply?
We're in pretty good shape right now.
Okay.
We have about $70,000 left to put toward this.
Wow. Good.
And we have that through the end of June. So at the rate we're going, we feel like we're going to be able to accommodate plenty of employers still. Folks are encouraged to reach out to me, and I will get them connected to the right team member to help get them started. My email address is correy.eimer, correy.eimer @nkadd.org. Employers, I would encourage them to just shoot me an email or give us a call at the Area Development District and ask to talk about incumbent worker training, and I'd be happy to talk to them.
And remind people out there, what is the territory? What's your scope? Does it cover all counties, 6 counties, 5 counties? How many?
Yeah, great question. It's the 8 northern Kentucky counties within the Area Development District.
Okay.
So that's Kenton, Campbell, Boone, Gallatin, Grant, Owen, Pendleton, and Carroll.
Okay. And another question that just popped into my head is, what if I have my own trainer? Do they have to qualify? They have to be on the list?
Yeah, we have to have licensed, credentialed trainers. So certainly anybody from the KCTCS college can be the training provider.
That's the gateway, right?
The gateway.
Okay.
The gateway. KCTCS is statewide, but Gateway is our local partner that does KCTCS. Anyone from Gateway could do the training, or any other licensed training provider. But it cannot be an in-house staff person doing the training. We wouldn't be able to reimburse the cost of the training if you just have your own employee provide the training.
Okay. And then you're going to help people get the paperwork they need, or is there an online format to fill out? What's the process?
Yeah, so it's fairly simple. There is a contract, a very simple contract that just states the guidelines. You know, it lines out the agreement between the employer and the Northern Kentucky Workforce Investment Board. And then there is a training assessment that needs to be done, which basically just takes you through the need to do the training. So we want to make sure that an employer who's doing the training really will benefit their employees to allow them to either stay where they're at or advance their position. So the bottom line is we want to help employers improve retention, improve advancement opportunities for their incumbent workers, and avoid layoffs.
Yeah.
So if there's ever a case where another example, aside from the frontline manager training, could be a manufacturer gets a new machine and they need to train up their staff on how to use it.
Okay.
That would be a pretty clear-cut example of how they could benefit from incumbent worker training.
Yeah. I was even thinking, even in our organization, you know, we all the time have new technology that comes in, or we get a new database system or something. So any of that type of training would qualify, correct?
It would.
If we could get a trainer, obviously an approved trainer.
Yes.
So, okay, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add?
We can reimburse up to $10,000
Oh, wow. Okay.
per employer per year.
Okay.
So, you know, we don't have to be thinking about small scale trainings, you know. And it's the amount that we reimburse is based on the size of the employer.
Okay.
So the employer always covers the cost up front. But if the employer has 50 or fewer employees, they can be reimbursed 90% of that cost. So smaller employers only have to chip in 10% of the cost of the training.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good deal.
That's right.
Employers who have between 51 and 100 employees have to contribute 25% of the cost of the training.
Okay.
And then employers who are larger, who have over 100, have to match 50% of the training.
Yeah.
But still, you know, if it's a $10,000 training, we can reimburse them as much as $5,000, which is a pretty nice deal.
And so to me, the investment that you put into your people, I mean, it reaps many, many benefits, but getting some of that dollar back, I mean, doesn't seem like there's a bad situation here, right?
it's a good thing to do anyway, but on top of it, we're able to help offset the cost.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Shannon Schumacher, Account Executive, Kentucky Market Leader. At Haran, we champion bold innovation to help employers and individuals thrive. As an industry thought leader, we explore new horizons in healthcare, benefits, employee engagement, and wellness. We work harder to deliver all the strategic benefits, planning, and execution you expect from a true partner. And we do it with laser focus on your short and long-term outcomes to help manage your benefits while improving your employee experience.
Thanks for tuning in to the podcast today, featuring Steve Abbott of Cincinnati Cancer Advisors and Correy Eimer of the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about both of those organizations. You can still register for the DEI Summit Series, Overcoming the Frozen Middle, on Friday, April 21st at nkychamber.com/events. And remember to submit your application for a Next Generation Leader Award before Friday, April 14th. That application can be found on our NKYP social media pages or at nkychamber.com/NGLA app. Thank you again to our podcast sponsors, CVG, Secret Consulting, and Haran. Finally, if you are a member who would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're interested in becoming a member of the Northern Kentucky Chamber, please reach out to Lynn Ablin. And if you're interested in sharing your workforce strategies and resources on NKY at Work, please reach out to Nancy Spivey. You can find both of their contact information on the screen in front of you or at our staff directory at nkychamber.com. Thank you again for joining the podcast. I'll talk to you all next week.